Stacy Rothgeb, MBA student at the University of Denver, talking about a citizen-centric future city. This session was basically talking about the ideal city of the future. It was a panel discussion moderated by Catherine Matthews, and it had three people on it. One was Jason Long with OMA, Hannah Kirschworth with Area 17, and Michael Radenberg with Rad Power Bikes. I'm not familiar with any of these companies, but it basically showed that it had a transportation component, an urban designer, and what was OMA? Anyway, it was those people who have input into the design of a city. So the key takeaways is that in the ideal city, you will have lots of human collaboration, connection, and inclusiveness. And so the idea of, some interesting statistics were 55% of the population currently lives in a city, and they're saying by 2050, 65% of people will live in the city. So we're continuing to get those people moving in. It was interesting to hear that statistic now, because I know during COVID, a lot of folks started moving out of the cities again. I think as we become more of a hybrid workspace, you'll see that too. This was kind of a counterpoint to it. They were like, yeah, we had a blip in time where that, but people are coming back to the cities. And, how do we influence that? One of the things that, Jason Long said is that, he considered living in the city during COVID the ideal situation because the city got quiet, which I was like, I don't know if that's, and his point is that the city got quiet because people were not out driving around. And I think they were trying to get to the point that we need more walking cities. We need a concept. I'm surprised they didn't use the term, but I've heard a lot about 15-minute cities. And the idea is you can walk anywhere you need to go. Everything you need, your work, your daycare, your grocery store, your doctors, pretty much everything you need should be within a 15-minute walk or a 15-minute mass transit, something of your home. And so that's the concept I was getting is, that they wanted to get the vehicles out of the city. Another thing, more green space and sustainability, and that kind of keeps going with that. But one of the points too is we talk a lot when we talk about city planning and urbanization about creating more outdoor spaces, but they pointed out that we also needed indoor spaces that for community gatherings. So more community centers, more libraries, things of that nature. And I thought I hadn't heard that quite that way before, and I thought that was interesting. They specifically identified work-life balance as being part of the ideal city of the future and that contribution to well-being. And so some of it is that idea that you need social activities in your cities. It can't just be it can't just be work and home, that they need the recreational things in there too. And that goes back again to even interior community spaces. It needs to be inclusive, and we talked quite a bit about that, what that means. And it's not just, yes, there needs to be inclusivity for accessibility for disabled people, but also all different types of people and what people like. So quiet spaces, loud spaces, just something that, I almost would call it adaptability, spaces that have multi-purposes. And the last thing on the list was tech and design to exist together better. And so it was a discussion about how we're using new technology or more intentional design to create that collaboration they started the discussion with. And, what were examples of that? It's some of the, ride share systems and things of that nature, where it talks about being more efficient and effective with what resources we do have in a more compact space because we're sharing those things. But it was a lot of open-ended, what do we need to make this work? An interesting feature of this, because everyone's talking about ChatGPT, is that they viewed it as the fourth panelist, which I thought was pretty creative, and gave them what is the ideal city of the future. And ironically, ChatGPT on itself basically listed all the things that the humans had already listed as their priorities. So I thought that was a great reinforcement that maybe we're training the AI appropriately and we're on the right path. Thank you.